everyone. Thanks for joining us for today's meetup. On today's agenda, Chris Fox, Chris Biscagula, and Scott will be discussing what's new in the ArcGIS for Local Government solution. As a reminder, we'll be recording this meetup and posting it on meetups.com shortly after the presentation. During the meetup, if you'd like to make comments or chat with other participants, you can use the chat panel. However, if you'd like to submit a question for the team to answer, then please submit it through the Q&A panel. And as an attendee, you'll see at the upper left-hand corner where you can access both your chat and Q&A panels. And also another reminder, if you wanted to change the screen size, if you actually hover over the center of your screen, there's view options. If you click that drop down, there's the fit to window option as well. So hopefully that works out for you. If you have any questions, just let me know. But with that said, I'll go ahead and pass it over to Scott.
Thanks, Heather. Thanks everyone for joining us today on the meetup, and hopefully everyone had a nice holiday season. Today we want to share with you our 2017 development plans and what's new in the solution that we shipped in our January release. So that's really what we're going to cover in summary today. We're going to focus initially on the January 27 release and kind of talk through some of the new offerings that are available. And then the second half of the meetup will show you some of the plans we have for 2017 and the work we have ongoing as well. So let's go ahead and jump right in. So last fall we got together as a team, and through dialogue with the user community, we started thinking about a series of development priorities that we would use to kind of govern the work we're doing or kind of guide the work we're doing. And there were three kind of high-level priorities we came up with last fall. The first is how can we simplify the deployment of our solutions and just make it easy for you guys to take advantage of the content we have in the ArcGIS for Local Government solution. Another major priority for us was modernizing many of what we call the legacy solutions. Some of you may refer to them as the black label solutions. And then finally, we have been getting a great deal of requirements from the industry teams and from the user community for new solution offerings across local government, and we wanted to develop plans to start to enhance our current solution offerings. So with these priorities in mind, we really put together a plan for last fall to start working on some of these initiatives, and you'll see these kind of tenets run through our work in 2017. And I want to start with the work we've been doing to really simplify the deployment of our solutions and talk about what has really been the focus of our development work this fall, or last fall I should say, and our January release. So as many of you know, right, ArcGIS includes a growing collection of solutions. Obviously, our community, the local government community, has been working on this for many years, but you'll find more than 400 different solution offerings spread across a variety of industries that Esri supports. And some of these solutions include a collection of maps and apps that work together, much like you saw last year on the mosquito control meetup, or maybe on the community events solutions we have, right? It's not just about a single map or application. It really is those are part of a larger workflow that help you solve problems across your organization. And as ArcGIS has evolved, many of our solution offerings now are just configurations of our COTS applications, and they include layers maps and take advantage of many of the configurable apps we have, like Collector or Operations Dashboard, or maybe even some of the crowdsourcing apps we provide in the ArcGIS Online environment. So in spite of the fact we've been working hard to make the technology easier for you guys to deploy it, the discovery of our solution offerings and the deployment is still challenging. And part of that is because there's a lack of connection directly to the core product, right? You have to go out to the solution site and search for what you're interested in. And then once you do find the solution you're interested in, there's a whole process you have to go through to download it from the solution site and configure it in your organization. So with that said, one of the things there are several goals we were trying to accomplish. One is we wanted to simplify that whole discovery and deployment of the solutions and help you quickly take advantage of the solutions in your organization. At the same time, we wanted to be able to support the deployment of a single solution, right? So really focus on and give you guys the flexibility to deploy a very focused application for a specific need in your organization, or tackle the entire collection and lay down a set of solutions that maybe helps you address a larger workflow. Over the years, we've seen kind of a common set of configuration steps that are required for each local government to kind of take the solutions we have and make them their own. and configure them to meet specific needs in organizations. So we wanted to support that as well too. And then what we've heard from many of you is that you'd really like to just get started with the solutions and not have to use the Naperville data or throw away the Naperville data before you get started. And so we wanted to allow you to kind of deploy the solutions without that sample data and just quickly begin to take advantage of it in your organization. So with our January 2017 solution site release, we shipped a new add-in for ArcGIS Pro that is called the ArcGIS Solutions Deployment Tool. And this allows you to quickly discover, deploy, and configure solutions in your ArcGIS organization. And ultimately, what you'll see today is that this add-in helps you discover the solutions that are available from our solutions teams. Once you decide which solution you're interested in, it'll quickly deploy the feature layers or services, maps, and configurable apps, and then allow you to configure the solution to meet specific needs in your organization, and ultimately, if required, load data, right? So we're trying to walk you through kind of a comprehensive approach to quickly deploy the solutions in your organization, and then begin to take advantage of them. So without further ado, what I'd like to do is turn it over to Chris Fox on our team, who's the lead developer on the solution deployment tool, and have him show it to you. Go ahead, Chris.
Thanks, Scott. Let me share my screen here. You guys see in Pro now?
Yeah, look.
Yeah, I can see your screen, Chris.
Great, thank you. So the first step in working with the solution is to get the add-in, and you can get that from our solutions website, and I'll show you where you can get that later in the presentation. But once you've downloaded the add-in, you can double-click it. It'll bring up a menu that will walk you through clicking to install the add-in, and then you can launch Pro, and the add-in is available. To access the functionality of the deployment tool, you can go to the Share tab and click the ArcGIS Solutions button in the Deploy group. This will load a task into the project and open the task pane that will ultimately walk you through this deployment. The first step is to sign into your ArcGIS organization. If you are already using your organization to authorize Pro, then you're likely already signed in. But if you're not, you can read some help documentation that will walk you through the steps of signing into your organization and setting the active portal that you want to deploy this content to. So I'm signed into my ArcGIS team local gov organization. Once I've done that, the next step is to deploy one or more solutions. By opening the Deploy an ArcGIS Solution task, we're presented with the list of solutions that are available to be deployed with this tool. They're grouped by industry, so we can explore the individual industries and look through the different solutions that are available. We can also set a filter by industry and initiative. So if I'm interested in solutions that are used to engage the public, I can set that filter and see all the solution offerings that revolve around that initiative. If I clear the filter, I can also use a search. So some of the solutions that I want to focus on in this demonstration are around our Vision Zero solution. So I'm going to search for Vision Zero, and it limits the list to the applications around that initiative. By hovering over any of the solutions, we can get a tooltip that gives us a little more information about that solution. I can also click Learn More, which will take me out to the solutions help topic on that particular map or app. So I can learn a little bit more about why I might want to use this solution, why it might be useful to me and my organization. So Vision Zero is an application that is used by public works agencies or public safety departments to solicit feedback from the general public about dangerous traffic behaviors in their community. And using this information, the goal is to reduce or eliminate casualties or serious injuries due to traffic behavior and collisions in the community. So to deploy these solutions, I'm going to select them all, select a folder in my content that I want to deploy them to, and click Deploy. So what this tool is doing is Vision Zero is a configuration of Crowdsource Reporter. And Crowdsource Reporter requires a group, a web map, and in this case, we're using a feature service with a single feature layer. So the tool is deploying that feature service in my organization. It's deploying the web map that's required by that app. It's creating the group and sharing that web map with the group, and it's creating that application. So when it completes, I can click this green check mark, and it will take me out to that item in my organization. This is your quick way to get access and find that item that was just created by the tool. It's prompting me to sign in to my organization, because currently by default it's shared privately. And then once I get to the item, I can launch the application. So let's take a look at the Vision Zero application that was created by the tool. I can sign in. By default, because it's private, I can't proceed as a guest yet, so I have to sign in with my Esri credentials. But if I were to share it with the public, they could log in anonymously, or they could use their Twitter or Facebook credentials if they wanted to do that as well. So here I'm in the Vision Zero application. I can submit a new report. And because we created the feature service with all the fields that are required for that application, we created the web map and configured the pop-up to expose the fields and provide nice aliases to show the questions that we want to ask. There's very little that I have to do at this point to get this ready to share with the public. I could share this app with everyone and advertise it and make it available, and everybody could start using the application as is. I don't really have to do anything further than that to start taking advantage of the Vision Zero application. But there will be some scenarios where you may want to configure it to further meet your specific needs in your organization. So we provide some additional steps in the task to assist you in that process. So I can finish this task. I've deployed the solutions. Now I want to go ahead and configure an ArcGIS solution. So in the configure step, we're giving you some context here. We're delivering these feature services, expecting some fields and some schema to support the application, the information model that we need for this particular application. You can add fields, modify domains, and things like that to fit your needs. But if you're going to make significant changes, it might make it more challenging for you to adopt enhancements as we move forward. So I think you want to carefully consider the types of modifications you're making to the application, depending on your needs. So one thing you can do as part of the configure step is add a field to the feature layers that are created by the tool. In this case, maybe I want to add a new field to capture a different piece of information from the citizen that's reporting the problem. Maybe I want to capture additional or have a specific question that I want them to answer as part of that form. In this case, I would add a field to store that information, and then I would modify the web map to add that field to the pop-up configuration so that it would show in the form of the Crowdsource Reporter application. Another thing that I often might want to do is modify a field domain. So I can do that to control what options are available in the pick list in the form. The domain is populating that information. If we go back to the app and I go to this drop down, let's say I want to add additional options in this "what were you doing" step of the application. So I'm going to go ahead and modify that domain. I can select the "what were you doing" field, and sorry about that. All right, we should be good now. I'm selecting the field that I want to modify. It pre-populates it with the existing domain that's available to that field in the feature layer. I want to change these domains a little bit. So maybe I want to just say driving here instead. And maybe in my community, there's just a ton of rollerbladers. So maybe that would be a common scenario. I was out rollerblading when I saw a problem.
Do they have that speech?
Yeah. So I'll go ahead and run that. And so what this tool is doing is it's modifying the domain of the hosted feature layer. This is actually a custom tool that we're delivering with the add-in to fill a gap that you can't currently do through the UI. So what this tool does is it's updating the domain on that field. And because the app is configured to expose that field and using that domain, I can just now go ahead and refresh my app. Log in. And now when I submit a new report, and select that option. Now I have the updated domain and the additional domain field value. So very little configuration I had to do in the web map or the application because it's just pulling that from the domain, but a fairly simple task, but powerful. There's a lot of use cases for that type of scenario. Okay, once I've finished configuring the solution, a final step is often to load your data into the feature layers that were created as part of the solution. In the Vision Zero example, I wouldn't necessarily need to load data because this is an application that's intended for the public to start submitting feedback or submitting issues. So that feature layer can begin empty and start to gather that feedback. But there will be some scenarios where I need to populate it with my existing data. And so in the load data task, we walk you through a couple different options. First, you could use ArcGIS Pro and the editing experience to copy and paste features between your local data and the feature layers that were created by the tool. You can also use the append tool, the append GP tool, to append your data into the feature layers. And using the append tool, you can leverage some of the field mapping options that are available to you to map from your schema to the schema that's created as part of the deployment. Once you've loaded your data, you should be good to go. You can share it with the groups that need to access it, share it with everyone if you want to make it available to the public. But that's the steps that you would walk through deploying a solution. The final thing that I want to highlight is if you want to go through this process and you're interested in deploying a solution in this pattern, you can go to our solutions page. And now in the getting started, what you'll see is additional topics that walk you through the automated deployment approach. And each of these topics walks you through those steps that I just talked about. First, installing the add-in, and here's where you can download the add-in to start using it. Deploying the solution, walking through that step to make sure you're signed into your organization, selecting the solutions that you want to deploy and clicking deploy. Configuring the solution by modifying the feature layers, updating the web maps, pop-up, renderer, the symbology of the layers, and configuring the application. And finally, loading your data using the editing tools or the append data tool to load your data into the new feature layers that were created as part of the deployment. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Scott.
Thanks, Chris. So that was a quick overview of the new ArcGIS Solutions deployment tool and how it transforms the way you can take advantage of the solutions that are available in the ArcGIS for Local Government solution. And there probably are many questions rolling around in your head, but let me just kind of hit a couple that we've had recently. So the first question I'll hit is, which solutions are supported? So one of the things you'll notice when you start to use it is that not every solution that we have available is currently in the deployment tool. What we focused on initially for this first release are collector for ArcGIS configurations, ops dashboard for ArcGIS configurations, and any solution that leverages Web App Builder and the widgets that we've developed and Web App templates as well. And as Chris showed you, I would, all of that information is documented on the solution site, and so you'll quickly see, which solutions are available, and at any point in time, you can search for a solution and discover it in that solution deployment tool. Another question you may be asking is, what version of ArcGIS Pro do I need? Well, the deployment tool is actually supported on Pro 1, 3, and the recently released 1.4. So many of you who are, within kind of the last 2 releases of ArcGIS Pro, you can take advantage of this in your organization. And then the last question that we get quite frequently is this the only way a user can deploy an ArcGIS solution? And if you kind of reflect back on the solution site documentation that Chris showed, right, there are 2 patterns that are available. Now there's an automated deployment method, which walks you through how to use the deployment tool in your organization, and Chris showed that. And there also is a manual deployment method as well that'll allow you to, just go through the process of setting up the feature layer, the web map, and or maybe an application on your own as well. So let's just talk for a minute about the impact and then maybe take some questions. The first thing, oh, I'm not sharing. Oh, really? Said share. Hold on. Thanks. Someone told me I wasn't sharing. I wonder why I didn't do that. There we go. All right. So now hopefully you can see it. All right. So let's just kind of talk about the impact. Well, obviously, as you can see from the demonstration Chris showed today, right, it's a very, very straightforward way for you to quickly discover and deploy the ArcGIS solutions in your organization. And ultimately, by being able to quickly deploy those solutions, right, it projects overall about, you can quickly demonstrate innovation and show how you can deploy ArcGIS and some quick wins in your organization. The other thing it does is help kind of standardize the configuration approaches, so it reduces the the struggle to stay current with our offerings. And one thing Chris didn't necessarily highlight, but you'll see as you begin to use the add-in, is that as we ship additional versions of the solution itself, you'll see that you'll be notified when there is a new version available, and you can decide if you'd like to deploy that in your organization. And then ultimately, you know, Chris showed how you can not only deploy a single map or application, but you could deploy all three of those, as he did, Vision Zero applications, to really address a more comprehensive offering in your organization and thus drive the value of GIS deeper in it. And ultimately, what you saw is now our solutions are being made available directly with ArcGIS. And so it's a very simple way within ArcGIS Pro for you to discover what's available and then begin to take advantage of it in your ArcGIS organization. So let's pause there, and maybe we'll take a few questions that you have on the new solutions deployment tool, and before we move on. Heather, have we got some questions that came in?
Yeah, JJ asked two questions. One, can you use ArcMap as well with the new add-in, or is it just strictly for Pro?
The ArcGIS Solutions deployment tool is only available for ArcGIS Pro.
Okay. A second question, which you should be able to answer, is he understands that the electric local gov solution is best with 10.2.1. With the new release of the electric solution, has it been upgraded to use this with the latest release, like the add-in, I'm assuming he's asking about?
Well, the utility the ArcGIS for utility solutions, still, most of that functionality is still supported at 10.2.1, and that's the primary release mechanism. You'll notice that not all of the electric solutions are delivered through this deployment tool. So some of the data management workflows and other solutions around that are still kind of in the download and deploy offering. You know, you're still going to download and deploy them from the solution site and set them up with ArcMap and 10.2.1. So.
Okay. Another question is, when will I be able to have a basic how-to on setting up, importing our data into the local government information model, which is required before we even think about implementing the new app, which today is being called as a solution?
Yeah, so we should probably spend a minute just talking about that, right? So what you saw Chris do is when he's deploying the solution, there is no concept of this large geodatabase container called the local government information model. He's deploying in your ArcGIS organization, whether that be on-premise or as a SaaS offering in online, just the feature layers you need for that solution. So there is no big, you know, Uber data model that you have to deploy for this solution. You can take advantage of the specific solution, Vision Zero, and you'll get just the feature layers you have. And what you'll see over time is that the only content that will be in that local government information model is the content that you will manage with an ArcMap on-premise inside of ArcMap, or maybe ArcGIS Pro for data management workflows and maybe planning and analysis workflows. Everything else will be coming out of that model, and it'll only be delivered as these feature layers that you deploy in your ArcGIS organization. So there is no requirement that you have to deploy the local government information model to take advantage of these solutions.
Okay, that is all of the questions for now.
Okay. All right, so why don't we move on now and talk a little bit about the work we have planned and to modernize and even provide some new solution offerings. And what you'll see is we're kind of focused on, you know, the traditional kind of industries or sectors within local government. Land records, which is kind of a bucket that talks about assessment and taxation, blight remediation, planning, economic development, and public works, as well as a new area we're starting to work on, which is public health. And then we're continuing to expand our police and fire, our public safety offerings as well. So what I'd like to do over the next couple of slides is just kind of highlight some of our plans for 2017. But before I do that, I want to talk about what we shipped in the January 2017 release. And here's a quick summary of kind of the new offerings or enhanced offerings that we provided in the January release. And all of this information is spelled out in detail on the What's New page within the Solutions site. But let me just highlight a couple key points. Obviously, one of our primary focuses this fall and heading through the holidays was to finish the development of this solutions deployment tool and catalog as many local government solutions in that tool as there are. And to date, I think we have 65 or 70 solutions that you can take advantage of immediately now in that new deployment tool. But we'll show you today, we also were working on some new offerings for land records, and we've got a new tax parcel viewer public access application that Chris can show you. And then we've also been enhancing some of our 3D offerings. So you'll see a whole new series of 3D offerings that allow you to visualize proposed developments and begin to look at the impact of those proposed developments in your community in 3D and taking advantage of ArcGIS's 3D capabilities. And then finally, take that proposed development and make it available to citizens and get their feedback on it. And, so if you think back to some of the work we've done with Crowdsource Reporter and maybe even Photo Survey to gather feedback from citizens in a 2D environment, 3D Public Survey really extends that now and allows you to provide 3D visualizations to the community and then ultimately capture their feedback on those proposals. And then finally, we've been doing some enhancements working with fire departments across the country on our AED inventory, which we'll touch on a little bit today. So there's a great deal of new content in the January release, and I would encourage you to really explore the What's New page and dig in deeper to learn more about that. But let's transition now to talk about some of our plans, kind of throughout 2017. And the first area we'll talk about is land records. Last year, we released a new web app builder widget that replaced an old engine application we had called Deed Drafter. And Parcel Drafter is a really simple way for you to begin to capture new deeds in your community and complement the parcel data management workflows you have. And we've got some enhancements queued up for that based on the feedback we've been getting from the community. We're also working on some enhancements to the residential comp finder application that allow you to do more advanced filtering of content in your community. And we're keeping an eye on the next gen 911 standards that are being finalized now, and we'll begin to incorporate those in 2017 into our address data management solutions across that entire offering. So those are some areas we're working on in kind of the assessment and taxation area and plans we have for 2017. In the blight, as we've talked about, in 2016, blight is an area that we're working with a whole host of cities on. And you'll see we're starting to begin to transition from just focused on kind of understanding where blight is in the community to how do I begin to predict where blight may occur next, and start to work on ways to understand where I might have at-risk parts of my community or at-risk neighborhoods in my community and what transactions I may want to look at more closely. And then we're enhancing some of the offerings to look at, how can I track and educate the public where I'm doing demolitions to mitigate abandoned structures. And then ultimately, how can I find mortgage relief if I do feel like I need some assistance in my community? And a lot of these applications support programs that local governments are implementing as a result of some of the TARP funding that's coming down from the federal government. So this will continue to be an area of interest for us. And one thing I'll point out is that many people think blight is only a problem for the Midwest. But you look at cities like Las Vegas and many in California and others across the country, there are many communities that are really looking at this and thinking about it as a neighborhood revitalization effort, just as much as a blight remediation effort in their community. Another area we're focused on in 2017 is planning economic development. One of the more popular solutions we have is the public notification application, and we're beginning to put together plans to really make it simpler for you to deploy that maybe in a fully hosted environment with Web App Builder and incorporate some of the feedback you've given us over the years. We're doing the same kind of thing with Park Locator and making that easier for you to deploy. And then beginning to reach into new areas like community event planning and operational awareness. And we're also sharing a great deal of communities are beginning to look not only at redevelopment of their neighborhoods, but the challenges now that the housing stock and the housing values are beginning to go up around affordability. And how can I ensure that I have affordable housing in my community, not just as well. So you'll see a whole host of offerings for planning economic development agencies throughout 2017. Public Works is another area we're focused on. There's a great deal, there's probably 20 or 25 different solution offerings now for public works organizations, and we're going to continue to enhance those offerings. One of the areas we're looking at, if you're familiar with the Citizen Problem Reporter solution we have, that is a simple problem reporter application that can be used for things like collecting potholes and other violations potentially in your community. And we're enhancing that to provide, more robust workflows, like how can I begin to use the location of that problem to triage it to the right responding agency? How can I begin to integrate Problem Reporter with some of the other ArcGIS apps that are out there, like Workforce and Collector, to provide a more comprehensive workflow for my organization? And so you'll see a great deal of enhancements that kind of complement the, the crowdsource reporting and the Citizen Problem Reporter application available in 2017. We're also looking at enhancements to our road closure and right-of-way, and adding some solutions around right-of-way permits. Chris on our team, who's worked heavily on the mosquito control solutions, will be enhancing those solutions based on the feedback we got and looking at ways that you can notify the general public when spraying may be happening in the neighborhood and begin to assign those service requests to other to organizations, maintenance districts in your community. And then finally, some other new emerging areas we're looking at are things like participatory budgeting. So many cities across the country are beginning to involve citizens in the allocation of funds, and where should capital improvements be made throughout the community. And that's a whole initiative around participatory budgeting. And other communities are, many communities are also looking at things like alternative fuels and autonomous vehicles, and how can they begin to prepare their city for the demands of those new vehicles and new transportation modes in the community. So a lot of new things we're thinking about for public works, and a lot of them kind of beyond the traditional operations and maintenance activities that we've already tackled in that area. As I mentioned, health is a new area we're looking at and beginning to get into, and there's two areas we're probably going to focus on in 2017. One is homelessness and homeless surveys, and the other is just the availability and access to health services. And so we'll start to work with organizations across the country and members of our teams here at Esri on some new offerings there for health organizations, public health organizations, and begin to ship those sometime in 2017. And finally, I'll just wrap up with police and fire, or public safety. And we've got a great deal of offerings currently available for police and fire agencies, and we're looking to enhance those and make them easier to deploy. And so you'll see some work that really modernize some of the desktop workflows we have for pre-incident planning, and begin to extend those to law enforcement communities for things like tactical operations planning and crime reduction. You'll see some offerings for things like simple public crime mapping applications that everyone wants to make available. So now that I'm hydrating my ArcGIS organization with public safety incidents, and how can I make some of that information available to the public, and what do I want to make available to the public, and then grow some of the crime analysis tools we have as well, and begin to enhance some of our existing offerings we've got. So there's a great deal of work in the public safety space as well too. So that was a kind of a whirlwind tour and a high-level overview of some of the work we've got planned for 2017. And the reason why we want to kind of share it with you early on in our work, because we are just getting started on many of these solution offerings. And if there are solutions that are interesting to you in your community, you can certainly begin to reach out to us, and we'd love to partner with you on those offerings to begin to work with you on kind of what should we include in each of these solutions. And so we're constantly looking for partners that want to work with us and all that stuff. So with that, let me stop sharing, and hand it over to Chris. And Chris is going to show you maybe some the new tax parcel viewer, and we'll highlight some of the new solutions that we shipped in the January release.
All right. Thanks, Scott. My name is Chris Pascali. I work in the solutions team. I focus on land records, planning, and a couple other areas. But today I wanted to talk about our new tax parcel viewer. So if you're familiar with our older one, like Scott mentioned, we want to modernize a lot of those applications. And one of the applications we chose to modernize was the tax parcel viewer. And if you open it up in the Try It Live version, you'll see some very common themes that you saw with the old version, but also some new ways of doing things. The first thing I want to show is just searching. So it has a configurable search, much like the original tax parcel viewer. In this case, I'm going to search for a parcel number. And what you'll see right away is when I search, I get a series of options. And this particular parcel is a condominium. So what you're going to see here are all of the individual units within that condominium show up right in the search. So if I'm interested in a particular unit of that condo, I can get right to it, click on that result, and then see that pop up on the map. We've also modernized the pop-up quite a bit, and it's also very customizable. You can change it up, enhance it, remove things that you don't feel necessary for your public viewing. And I'll show you an example that one of our partners did to customize this pop-up component here. I can click on the parcel number. In this case, I'm going to get a nice image of that property. Taking a little bit there. Show you that in a second. And then we can also link over to the property record card. Apologize, the internet's a little slow here. And go ahead and open up that PDF. So I get a very, it's a little more information that you would see in a pop-up for that parcel. So you're getting information about the neighborhood, even the neighborhood characteristics in this case. And we also have a GP service that we included with the original tax parcel viewer. We are going to include that with the next version of the tax parcel viewer so that you can actually configure that service to generate a report if you want as an option. But that is not available with the current release. And what you can also do is submit feedback. So this is some functionality that we brought forward with the new tax parcel viewer, where as a citizen, I can come in and actually submit feedback on a particular parcel or area. And what I'm going to do is draw that in here. So draw an area. I'm going to say that there's a problem with the geometry in this area, and it's because I recorded a deed that merged these parcels last year. And it's not being included on the current map. And I can give my contact info, my phone number, and then submit that feedback. As you can see, the feedback, that polygon that you were seeing has disappeared, and that can be reviewed now on the back end in the office to see what the actual issue might be. We've also included a simple print, which allows you to print the map. And then you can also go over to the base map and switch the base map if you want to see the imagery behind. And you can also configure that as well to include additional base map information. So if you want to have your own imagery, you can include that. And you can add any of the default Esri base maps as well. And one of the things you'll notice too is we brought in the address information. So you're seeing the site addresses being displayed in both the imagery view as well as the topographic base map view. So you can see the site addresses as well. And that's the tax parcel viewer. What's really nice about this with the new one is that you can actually deploy it with the deployment tools like Chris was showing earlier. So if you look at the Getting Started guide for the tax parcel viewer, you'll see a very similar pattern there. We actually have the automated approach outlined, as well as the manual steps if you want to do it manually as well. And then just real briefly, I want to show you one of our partners, ProWest Solutions, that has a try it live version of the tax parcel viewer already. And you can go explore it, and you can see here that they've actually modified the pop-up to fit their needs and done some customization there. They've also linked the parcel ID, much like we did for the image, over to the property record card. So here's the general info about that parcel, some 2016 and 17 assessment information, and where to get more info. So that's just some general configuration on top of the default tax parcel viewer.
Chris, that's also a place where you could reach out to your your public access camera system too, right?
Yeah, exactly, and I believe that's what they're doing here.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool. All right, so let me go back and share my screen. So the other thing we wanted to show you are some of the enhancements we have made to the AED Solutions. So if you're familiar with some of the work we had done with fire departments several years ago, we actually had built a collector configuration to inventory AEDs in the community. And it was really just focused on kind of how do I inventory those and begin to make them available. But through some work with several fire departments across the country, we actually shipped a series of enhancements to that to kind of round out that workflow. So what you'll see in the new, in the January release is there's a new configuration of Crowdsource Reporter that allows citizens or maybe the business community within your jurisdiction to submit the location of AEDs, right? So many of these are on private property, right? And you want to kind of enlist, or you could have a campaign to enlist feedback from the business community. And so this is an application you can author to begin to collect that information. right, so I can come in here and say, okay, I want to put a new one in at Nike Park. It's in between the soccer fields, right, and submit that information. Is it on private property? Who submitted it? Is it accessible to the public? When is it accessible? And then ultimately, you know, come in here, search for that location in the community and drop a point and then submit it, right? And so then I've got a new AED location submitted for my community. In addition to just kind of collecting that information from the public, there's a configuration of Crowdsource Manager now. And if I were just to refresh this, you'd see that report that I just submitted come in. But this allows folks, fire personnel, to kind of triage the information that's coming in from the business community or the general public, and then prepare it for fire personnel, either fire prevention staff or others who want to go out and actually validate that that location's there, right? So many times, you know, they'll want to go in and ultimately, you know, check this information in the field, verify that that location's there. So I can come in here and I can just say, yes, that location's verified. And at this point, maybe I assign it to one of my departments within the fire, my fire department. I can identify when it was inspected on, save that location, and then ultimately now begin to make this available maybe to my dispatch system in my community, or potentially, here if I can just minimize that, right, to the public in an application called, a new solution called AED Locator. So AED Locator now allows citizens within the community or businesses to actually find the nearest AED within the community that you're making available. And this is only showing AEDs that have been verified by the department. But like other AED configurations, right, I can come in here and just search for an address or tap on the map and locate AEDs that are near that. If I just kind of expand my search criteria, right, I can now start to see where those are, get detailed information about that AED, and then ultimately see the attachments that are there. And if I had directions enabled, right, I may see, you know, I can get directions to walk to that location as well too. So you'll see, right, that we've actually kind of really enhanced that specific collector configuration we have, right, to have them to address more comprehensive workflows. And much like Chris showed you earlier, right, if I want to now deploy these solutions, right, so if I want to deploy the tax parcel viewer that Chris showed you, right, I can just come in here and search for tax parcel, find that in the deployment tool, and then quickly deploy it in my organization. Or maybe if I'm interested in those AED solutions, right, I could select all 5 of these solutions that are now available and deploy them in my organization. So it's a real simple way for you guys to kind of transition from seeing that solution on the solution site, using the Try It Live to get a sense for how it adds value to your organization, and now quickly deploy it in your community. So that's just a few of the new solution offerings that we shipped in the January release. Let me just kind of summarize then with kind of where we're going, and then ultimately we can take some more questions as well. So, you know, in 2017, you'll kind of see those themes that I talked about early in the presentation continue, right? We want to continue to work to simplify the deployment of our solution offerings. And today we showed you the first release of that ArcGIS Solutions deployment tool. And as I mentioned, there's 70 or 75 different local government solutions in there. And what we're working actively on is how can we make actually all of our solutions available in that deployment tool. So you can, whether it's a desktop data management workflow, or it's an operations dashboard configuration, you can discover and deploy it in that same experience. And we're also beginning to think about how could that same kind of experience be available directly in your ArcGIS organization. And so throughout 2017, you'll see work we'll be doing there to really kind of continue to simplify that deployment model for you. We're also looking for ways we can deepen customer engagement, and the meetups and the feedback you guys give us on these meetups is one example of that. But as I mentioned a few minutes ago, if there are areas that we're working on in 2017 that you're interested in as a community, we'd love to connect directly with you and actually incorporate your feedback and your requirements into the solutions we ship as well too. And then ultimately what you'll see is that we'll be continuously improving the solution over the course of 2017 with incremental releases, much like we did in 2016. And we'll probably have 4 to 5 releases this year where you'll see new solution offerings, enhancements to existing offerings, and you know, any other fixes we may need to make to existing offerings as well too. So that's a quick overview of the plans we have for 2017. And I think now we can kind of open it up, Heather, and talk about talk about any questions that may come up.
Sure. Richard had a question. You were talking about the local government information model. What does that mean? Are you moving away from the local government information model?
So it's a good question. So our intent as a solutions team was never to build an information model for cities and counties. Our intent was to provide you physical implementations of ArcGIS that are organized around these workflows. And like any other system you guys buy, right, that system requires an underlying information model that helps you organize that content. And as we started building the solution years ago, right, the only way to deliver that kind of underlying information model was to give it to you in a geodatabase. Well, right now, the way ArcGIS is organized, we don't have to give you every layer in a geodatabase, right? We can organize it in its appropriate kind of container, so to speak. So some will be feature layers that have really, just like they would in the geodatabase, right? They'll have all the fields and the aliases and domains pre-populated for you. And just like Chris showed in the Vision Zero, it'll be set up and organized and you can deploy it in your organization. We still will have that underlying information model though for data management workflows, for potentially planning and analysis workflows that you use ArcMap for, or maybe ArcGIS Pro. So we're not moving away from that altogether, right? We're still going to provide ways for you guys to organize your content and deploy these solutions in your organization, but there won't be a single geodatabase container that has all of the layers that, for any solution we have in local government. So hopefully that clears it up.
Okay. Ryan has a question. When do you see Parcel Fabric being brought into ArcGIS Pro?
Another good question. So currently, I guess you could say the only way to edit and maintain your parcels is with ArcMap. There are plans to have that capability inside ArcGIS Pro. We aren't there quite yet. We're still working on it, and we probably have some more details on that towards the latter part of the year, I would think, on when you'll have full parcel management and editing capabilities within Pro.
Another question. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Another question for you, Chris. Chris B. Can you demonstrate the print options in Tax Parcel Viewer?
Sure. Yeah, I can talk about them briefly. So we're just using the standard print widget, which is included with Web App Builder. So you get all A3, A4 size prints, letter formatted ones, and then tabloid size. So they're just the default layouts that you get with Web App Builder, and you can actually explore those if you just try it live application, and you'll see those options there. And you also have a capability of exporting it out as a PDF, which is default.
Chris, okay, you cut out a little bit towards the end.
Okay, I was just saying that there's also the option to export as PDF, but also the your standard image formats, PNGs, GIFs, etc. Okay.
Amy has a question. Scott, how do you express interest in collaborating on development with the local government team?
So really, it's just as simple as you could hit us up on the Meetup, on the Meetup site and send us a note, or contact us directly. It's entirely, there's no real formal process. Just reach out to us directly, or reach out to your account executive as well too. That's another way, and just kind of identify the area that you're interested in collaborating on, and we'll, get back in touch with you. One of the guys from the team will get back in touch with you and kind of talk about how we can best do that.
Okay. Josh had a question. If you're not utilizing the local government information model any longer, what is the best procedure to get started using ArcGIS Online?
Yeah, so let me try to clarify that. It's not that we are not providing you an information model, right? It's just not. If you think about some of the solutions that we had previously, take the sign inventory solution as a great example. Right, that sign inventory solution had two layers in the geodatabase. It had a poll layer and it had a sign layer, right? But the first step in that process was to publish a feature layer to your ArcGIS Online organization or to your portal implementation that could be accessed in a web map by Collector for ArcGIS. Because ultimately that solution, you're using Collector to interact with feature layers in that are in your ArcGIS organization. And so it was really, to be quite honest with you guys, it was really very redundant, right, to have those layers in a geodatabase and then also have them as feature layers somewhere in your on-premise implementation or in your ArcGIS Online implementation. So what I'm saying is that instead of giving you those two feature layers in the geodatabase, in the LGEM, and all of it in a single container, what we're giving you are actually those feature layers that can be deployed quickly. So for example, if I wanted sign inventory now, let's come out of full screen mode here, right? And if I wanted sign inventory now, what I could do is just search for it in the deployment tools. Let's do sign inventory, right? And I could deploy this solution directly, and it's going to create that feature layer for me. So I don't have to start an ArcMap with a map document. Well, first of all, I don't have to start by downloading a 300 meg geodatabase, right? Or 300 meg zip file that you guys didn't want to download 5 times, right? And then take the map document, wire up your data to that, then publish the layer, then go out and create your web map, and then start collecting signs in the field. What we're doing for you is actually creating those layers in your organization for you, allowing you to load sign data if you have it already, and then begin to use the web map in Collector immediately. So we're just really, what this will get you to start thinking about is kind of how your local GIS data holdings are in the WebGIS pattern are a combination of content you manage on premise in a geodatabase and feature layers that exist in your ArcGIS organization. And that really, that combination of those two things is really, in a WebGIS deployment pattern now, the local government information model. That's kind of how I would repivot your thinking on it a bit. So hopefully that helps.
Okay. Brent has a question. Is the property report created by the app or linked to one in is it CAMA system?
Yeah, so the report that we show in our TriLive version is a sample of what you will link to that might be part of your appraisal or tax system. So, and then the ProWest example is the same. So that would be a report that you would already have, and then we are simply linking to it.
Okay.
And that's what we found through feedback as well, is that most people have property record cards or something like that available with their tax or CAMA system. So we thought it would just be best to link to it versus creating a new one.
Okay. And Mary has a question. Do you need data reviewer for feedback? I think it was regarding the tax parcel viewer.
Yeah, so the feedback layer that you see in the tax parcel viewer is really just a feature layer feature. And that can be brought into ArcMap, it can be brought into ArcGIS Pro, and overlay that on top of your existing parcel data to review it. You don't necessarily need data reviewer to do that. However, we do have a data reviewer configuration specifically for managing tax parcels as part of our data management solution. So I guess, the answer is no, it's not required, but you can use data reviewer in conjunction with those workflows to help streamline your parcel maintenance.
And a simple way to use that feedback layer too, Chris, right, is that you could have it as a layer in the parcel editing map, right? So when people are looking at new splits, combinations, and subs, they can also be looking at the feedback and then triage that and make the amendments too.
And the example that I gave about the merge is probably just because the mapping office hasn't gotten to that transaction quite yet.
Yep.
You can respond to the person that submitted that feedback.
Okay. Steve has a question. When do you expect Pro to allow to publish services to ArcGIS server?
So you can publish to ArcGIS server today, and 1.4 added make this a little bit easier. But basically what you need in order to publish to ArcGIS server is you need a portal, and you need that ArcGIS server to be federated with the portal. ArcGIS Pro is using a portal for all its sharing workflows, whether that's an ArcGIS Online organization or an on-premise portal. So if you have that environment with an ArcGIS portal, a server that's federated with it, you can either publish to server by copying the data to the server, or you can register your enterprise database as a data store with the server and publish by reference to that server. But that's kind of the consideration, is you need that portal and you need to federate that server with the portal.
Okay. That is all the questions for now.
Okay. Well, I think that's it. That's all we had for this meetup.
Oh, okay.
Let me see if there's any final questions.
Yeah, if there are any final questions, just let us know. Otherwise, I guess I'll just wrap it up. So
Okay.
thanks everybody for joining today's meetup. We look forward to seeing and hearing from you at our next meetup, which will be on Thursday, February 23rd, which will be providing an overview of the 3D solutions for proposed developments. So until then, have a great afternoon, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.